Hi folks, this is Jay. We're looking at this book, Geza Vermas, and we're looking at predictions of the resurrection. He goes on, in one or possibly two of the 6 occurrences, the last of them dated to 2 days before the Passover, but forewarning is restricted to the arrest and the cross, with no mention of the resurrection. In Luke 9:44, Matthew 26:2, Luke 9:22, repeats almost word for word the statement of Mark as quoted above, Mark 8:30-31, and so does Matthew 2, Matthew 16:21. Peter's reaction is at odds with the story, which includes the resurrection. He rebukes Jesus. God forbid, Lord, this shall never happen to you, a reproach that in turn provokes Jesus' angry reprisal and disposal of Peter. Get me behind me, Satan. Matthew 16:22-23, Mark 8:32-33. The second indirect prediction is associated with Jesus' order to the 3 leading apostles, Peter, James and John, who have accompanied him to the Galilean mountain of the Transfiguration, not to divulge their experience until he is risen from the dead. Mark 9:9, Matthew 17:9. The extraordinary clarity of the announcement is offset by Mark's remark that the apostle had no idea what rising from the dead meant, which in turn confirms our finding that the resurrection had no prominent part in Jesus' previous teaching. I don't agree with that, Vermes. That doesn't ring true. That they didn't understand it at the time of Jesus, that the clarity after Jesus' resurrection, when they write it, makes sense. In the time of Jesus, they didn't fully understand why he was going to die on the cross and rise. After Jesus, they understood it clearly, so it makes perfect sense. So Vermes doesn't really make sense when he's saying that. He goes on, the third premonition is also situated in Galilee. It is coached in generic terms. Jesus will be delivered into the hands of unspecified men, and as in the previous case, the apostle did not know what he was talking about, but contrary to their habit, they were afraid to inquire. Mark 9:30-32, Matthew 17:22-23, Luke 9:43-45. The fourth episode is during Jesus' last trip to Jerusalem, just a few days before Good Friday. In Mark's version, it is all the appearance of a prophecy after the fact, mirroring in detail all the stages of the Passion, the arrest by the chief priest, the condemnation to death, the handing over to the Gentile, the Romans. In Luke, instead of adhering to the customary style of direct prediction by Jesus, we encounter for the first time a reference to the fulfillment of the prophecies. Behold, we are going up to Jerusalem, and everything that is written of the Son of Man by the prophets will be accompanied. Luke 18:31. The same formula is repeated later in Luke, first in the conversation of the risen Jesus with the disciples on the way to Emmaus. O foolish men, slow to believe all that the prophets had spoken, was it not necessary that Christ should suffer these things and enter into his glory? Luke 24:25. And later in address to the apostles in Jerusalem, these are my words I spoke to you which I was still with you, that everything written about me in the law of Moses and the prophets and the Psalms must be fulfilled. Luke 24:44. In the last straightforward prediction, a couple of days before the crucifixion, Jesus foretells in Jerusalem his pending arrest and a death. You know that after 2 days the Passover is coming, and the Son of Man will be delivered up to be crucified. If we leave aside the examples of the brazen serpent, the sign of Jonah, all the predictions are couched in clear and simple language that no one could possibly misunderstand. It is hardly possible that they did not hear the message. Indeed, on one occasion Jesus is said to have explicitly drawn the apostles' attention to what he was going to tell them. Let these words sink into your ears, for the Son of Man is to be delivered in the hands of men. Luke 9:44. I disagree with you there, Vermes. I think it was not on the radar for the disciples to believe that a Messiah would die and rise again. It was on the radar for a political leader, a political Messiah, but it was not on the radar for someone to die and rise again. So they wouldn't understand what he was getting at. It became clear afterwards, after they recorded his teaching and reflected on it, it became clear to them. Surely, as a historian, that is the best way to look at this historical information. I think Vermes brings in assumptions without verification, but it's based on arbitrary understanding of the text.